Hello, welcome to my RWBY Volume 2 review. I'm going to be talking about RWBY Volume 2. The series is on roosterteeth.com. It's a Rooster Teeth series, and it's on Netflix, so you can watch it wherever either on Netflix or on their website. Um, so I'm going to go over with what I liked and disliked about the show. So let's get started. The major improvements that this show had was the animation. However, it still feels floaty at times, but I think they nailed kind of the details, within the background and the animation, the motion with non-action scenes. They took out a lot of needless kind of motion or excessive motion that they had in the first volume. Like in the first volume, it kind of felt cartoony. Here, it's like they kind of dial that back, and when they talk, it's like they talk like normal people almost. Like they're not constantly moving every part of their body when they talk. They talk like normal people almost, and I like that. I mean, it's a good balance that they have with it right now. The action scenes are great. I think these are the best action scenes I've seen in RWBY. Out of the two volumes I've seen, I really like the ones in volume 2 a lot. They're very well done, and makes me questioning where to go from here. So that's good. So I really like that. I really like the action scenes. I wish I could say the same about the audio. There's a lot of inconsistencies that kind of permeated from Volume 1 still persisting here. There'd be moments where you'd be listening to a character talking a sentence, and you would constantly find yourself either turning on subtitles or just, playing with the volume on your TV because it's either going to be too low or too loud at random parts of that sentence. I don't know if it's a Netflix problem, maybe it's the way that it was uploaded or something. I don't know what it is. Because I know I've never encountered this problem with any other Netflix series or anything on Netflix. So this is the first I'm hearing this. So I don't know if it's something that the show might have an issue with itself, or if it was just something that kind of got glitched in Netflix. I don't know. Um, I mean, hopefully this gets addressed in RWBY's future. But right now that's the only issue I've had. The voice acting. I still think the characters are kind of hit or miss with their voice acting. I think they generally got an improvement from the first volume, but I still feel that RWBY doesn't really fit. The voice actors of RWBY doesn't fit the character. It's like having Batman being voiced by Tara Strong. It doesn't really work. It doesn't really sound natural, and it doesn't really fit. That is the only complaint I have with RWBY's voice actress. I mean, I think I have nothing against her or anything like that. I mean, she's great, but I think she might have been miscast for this character because I don't really see the I just don't really see her voice fitting the character personally. But she does a good job with what she's given. The one scene that I will kind of question, I'm not sure what the direction was or what, but so there's a scene where she meets up with Penny again, and at this point she's seen Penny take down airplanes and all this stuff, so she sees Penny stop a bus or a car or a truck or whatever, a vehicle, with her bare hands. And she acts surprised. So I was like, okay, well, maybe she didn't think that, she's a robot or something. Okay, whatever. Penny tells her, well, I'm not a real girl. I'm not a normal girl or something. And Ruby's reaction was, oh, like I don't think that's the right kind of reaction to have when someone tells you I'm not a normal person. Like, she doesn't have to act all scared or anything, but like, this is the person that was really happy to meet new weapons in the first episode of Volume 1, and you know here she meets a person who's basically a walking weapon. Basically, she should at least be excited or giddy or something over the about this than just saying, "Oh, like it's nothing." That's the only thing I was like, "Why? What was the direction here?" And again, like some of Weiss got good, Yang got good, but with Weiss, some of her her screams are just kind of weird. Like I don't know. I can't remember any of them on the top of my head, but I just remember watching and just kind of like laughing every time Weiss would scream because it just sounds funny to me. But um, overall the cast did improve. Maybe they're gonna get better as they go on and grow into these roles. Maybe anything could happen. But I still just stand by with what I said with Ruby. I just don't really see the voice fitting the character. And the professors still feel kind of quirky with their voices. They don't really give any substance. But That's really it for voice acting goes. The story. This is a big thing for me because I like a good story, and the story in Volume Two is a massive, massive, massive improvement from Volume One. Like Volume One, to summarize it quickly, I felt it was a mess, and you could have either changed some stuff or get rid of stuff entirely, and it wouldn't impact the narrative at all in Volume One. In Volume Two, every bit of it kind of feels that, oh, this needs to be here and this is great, and it adds so much to the story, and it kind of feels more thoughtful in Volume Two. Um, the only thing that I kind of didn't like was there was a scene from pretty much the scene where Team Ruby arrives at that deserted city. From that point to when they start talking about why they're huntresses and why they're at Beacon, that could have fit perfectly in Volume One, because I feel like we should have at least known, like the dialogue that they had about like why they're at Beacon and all that stuff. We should have known that in the first volume, or at least gotten that kind of development within the first volume, not in the second. I mean, there's nothing. I guess there's nothing completely wrong with that, but I think it would have been better to get that in the first volume than having it just being told to us in the second, uh, because it just kind of gets a little heavy-handed with kind of where they're trying to go with it, and what it means and all that kind of stuff. It just feels kind of like we get it. This is a job and this has responsibilities, but like if it was in volume one, it would work better because these characters are just learning to kind of they're learning, and then they come to this realization in volume one, which is perfect. Volume two, I don't think you should be just learning about these characters just then and there, but um, that's a small little issue. I mean, everything, it doesn't really destroy the effort that volume two had, but it was just something that made me think and kind of made me not like volume one even more. Um, and speaking of and like there's no sense of urgency. Like with the villains, like I get you don't want to explain everything about your villains. You want to keep it a mystery, and have that kind of develop as it goes on. That's fine. I totally get that. But I feel like as a viewer, we should at least know their motive or what they're building to. Like for example, in The Legend of Korra, Book 3, you see the enemies here, and all it says in the first episode is, oh, it's gonna be the end of the White Lotus and the end of the Avatar, and afterwards he just kind of developed that kind of villain and all that kind of stuff, and that's really, really, really interesting, and it adds to this mystery, and you see what he means by that, and as he goes on. But that's something you get his motive, or not maybe not his motive, but you get what he's trying to do. In RWBY, the villains, you don't really know what they're trying to do. You just know that they're bad. Um, so every time when you have a character trying to talk about, we need to find out what they're doing, it's just you don't feel anything for that dialogue, because you're just like, I don't know what these villains are doing. Why should I care? If the show doesn't care about giving me a reason to care, why should I care other than we don't know what they're doing? I mean, it's just that is a cheap, to me at least. This is just an opinion. Is a cheap way to make it interesting. Is to add the suspense. It's artificial to me because you're intentionally not telling us something about the villain. So you're just feeding on our curiosity to give us this tension, instead of giving us a reason to feel this urgency. So it kind of builds this kind of expectation for this reveal. So this reveal better be good to justify this kind of uh, storytelling. And I really don't like I don't like storytelling like this either. So I mean, this is all personal taste, I suppose at this point. Um, but like like when you have Blake kind of talk about this kind of stuff, and having Yang go in to tell her to slow down and all that kind of stuff, it just doesn't. I don't feel anything for either character at that point, because I don't know what they are trying, what the villains are trying to accomplish and all that stuff. I don't know. It's just that it just kind of takes me out of the entire scene. And speaking of Yang and Blake, that scene, that, and this is a small thing, but this scene could have been a little bit edited better, because there's a lot of redundancy with Yang's dialogue, because she keeps saying, "I'm not asking you to stop. You just need to slow down," and she said that like 3 to 4 times or something ridiculous, and like it's great we got a good backstory from her, why she's here and all that stuff. I like that, but I don't like that. It's just, I mean, that I don't like, but like it's just she keeps repeating the same kind of stuff, over and over to this character, which kind of is like, okay, well, this could have been cut here, and this time could have been used something for something completely different or something better. It's just too much redundancy with it. But that's a small little gripe I have with that scene. Um, the other thing is they introduce way too many characters by the end of the volume, and I get that. It kind of goes with what I said about the villains and not knowing their motives, but it's another cheap artificial way to hook people into your show. To me, it's like if your show is good and if it's like this really interesting story, that will be the hook alone. You don't really need to have all these like plot twists to hook people in. I mean, it's plot twist is like seasoning. You just add a plot twist to the story to kind of spicing it up. You don't, but if you put too much seasoning onto something, it's gonna taste awful. And here's like there's too much stuff trying to hook you in that I don't think that we need all this kind of hooks here. We don't need all these plot twists. And there's the stuff that doesn't really add anything to the story other than questions. And that's the other problem I have is that this show generates more questions than answers. And to me, every story should have a balance where they should have, enough questions and enough answers. Like, you don't have to answer everything, but but to give us more questions than answers is just kind of, I don't like that. It just kind of, because then, it starts, building up this expectation, and then, if things don't get wrapped up properly, those questions are just going to be left open. It's kind of like what happened with Metal Gear Solid 2 to Metal Gear Solid 4. 2 had all these questions that you just kept adding, and then when you got to Metal Gear Solid 4, it's like, how possibly could he answer these questions that he added? It's just at some point they're gonna add so many questions that they're not gonna either get them straight or they're just gonna have too much to answer, and that's the point. That's what I'm trying to say here is that there should be a balance with how much stuff that they have in the story, um, and their message of equality. This is my final point, and okay. This is my final point. They keep talking about this inequality between faunus and humans, and sure, I'm sure that exists in the show. I'm not saying it doesn't, but I want to see it. The only glimpses we get of it was Cardin bullying Faunus, but it gets cheapened because Cardin bullies everyone. I mean, he bullied John. He's just a typical bully. Yeah, and you get some stuff from Weiss saying some racial stuff about Faunus, and kind of this I mean, they just talk about this inequality. They don't really show it happening in present time. So, like, in the interrogation scene with Blake, when the guy, the instructor, I can't remember his name at this right now, but like he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm making strides to kind of shrink the gap between faunus and humans." And Blake was like, "Well, you're not doing a good job of it. There's still more to be done." And it's just like, and I'm saying, I was sitting there, it's like, what needs more to be done? You have friends. Everyone seems to be accepting of Sun. I've not seen a single person, treat him lesser than anything. I mean, they treat him pretty equal. I mean, Weiss doesn't trust him, but that's whatever. That's maybe the only instance, but I just think that if you're gonna talk about this inequality, show this inequality, because that to me is important. Like there are moments where words are more powerful than seeing it, but like they keep talking about this inequality, and I just don't see it, so I don't really care about this inequality because to me it's like if I don't see it, then I don't really believe it. I mean, it's not like in real life where if I say there's no sort racism is nothing, it doesn't happen anymore. That's incredibly ignorant because it happens every day. It still persists and it's still a problem, sure. But in RWBY, it's like in a medium like a show, you have to show it because it's part of building your world. If you're gonna start talking about inequality and all this stuff, you need to show instances of that. Like, if you go out today, you can find instances of racism within our world, and see that this problem still exists. But in a show, I'm not familiar with this world. I don't live in RWBY, so if you're going to be talking about inequality, you have to show it. Um, and that's really the only issues when they is just that. That's my last issue with this show. Overall, Volume 2 is a great improvement. I actually enjoyed watching Volume 2 a lot more than Volume 1. I found myself actually more invested with some of the stuff that I've seen. If I just watched Volume 1, I might not have checked out Volume 2. But I checked out both because they're both on Netflix, so I decided to give both a fair shake. And Volume 2 really got me interested in giving Volume 3 a shot whenever that comes out. So I'm excited to see more from the people behind this. I do see a lot of effort and passion within Volume 2, especially Volume 2. I mean, there was passion and effort in Volume 1, but I think in Volume 2 is really where they started to really push their talents more. And there's this effort that I feel like if they push themselves even more, I think they can do great things with this. It's a great start. I definitely think it's worth checking out. I mean, again, I'm not truly hooked or connected with this series, but it's at least entertaining. So I'm just invested in that on that basic entertainment level. So that's something. It's not a terrible show and it's nothing great, but I think it's handled by very talented people. So I actually think RWBY is a decent series. I just think it's a little messy and clumsy at times, but it's very competent with what it wants to be. So that's it for this video. If you have any thoughts, feel free to share them in the comment section below. See you next time.